Welcome to the Michiana Hivecast, where wellness meets community and conscious living takes flight. I'm your host, Jamila Blue, and I am so glad you're here. This is your space to expand, evolve, and grow together. Each episode, we celebrate the heart of Michiana through real conversations with local practitioners, healers, creatives, and community builders who are lighting the way towards connection, balance, and transformation. Whether you're just beginning your journey or deep in your practice, you'll find inspiration, insight, and a sense of belonging right here in the Hive. At Conscious Michiana, we are all about uniting people, sharing resources, and co creating a thriving, holistic community. So let's get buzzing, and thank you for being a part of this conscious collective. The Michiana Hivecast, buzzing with wellness, connection, and conscious living in Michiana. Expand, evolve, grow. So I am so excited to bring a newcomer to our community,
Yes.
Dr. Corrina Weihrauch. I had met you, I believe, at the Earth Day festival event over at Howard Park. And when I saw what you were doing and heard a little about your story, I was really excited to bring you to our viewers. So welcome.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you just so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here and just share, a little bit about what I do, how I got here, and yes, I'm new to the area, so just connecting with Conscious Michiana and connecting with the Michiana area and the community. So thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about you, your practice, and how you arrived here. So let's start with how you arrived here. You were previously, was it in Colorado, perhaps?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you recently moved here from South Carolina. When did you
Yes.
move here?
I moved here in December, so right before this long winter that we've had. Yeah, I came
A
here.
long winter. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah, and everybody gave me a hard time about moving up to Michigan, but I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. I grew up there until I graduated high school, and then I had moved down to South Carolina. I was in Myrtle Beach for a little while, and then I went to chiropractic school in upstate South Carolina. So that was the last place that I was before I moved here.
Dr. Corrina. Is it okay if I say Dr. Corrina, or would you prefer
Yes.
Dr. W, or what do you
No,
prefer?
Dr. Corrina is good.
Okay, good. Dr. Corrina, what led you to be interested in being a chiropractor?
Yeah, so it's kind of like two parts to my story. So there was kind of like two parallel timelines or stories happening at the same time. So I kind of around high school was having my own health related issues, and it was issues related to my hormones and my cycle and things like that. And I was young and I was having all these issues, and I would go to the doctor, and I feel like the result was always just like, we'll just take these medications. Like I felt like no one was really hearing me. I felt like I was like, I'm really young to be on medications. I didn't feel like that's something that I wanted to do for myself. And I felt like no one took labs, like no one really tried to like figure out, what was going on. It was just kind of like here. And then kind of at the same time, I was graduating high school, I started nursing school, and I was full on just excited to become a nurse. I have a really big heart for taking care of people, for listening to people, for really like hearing their story, meeting them where they're at, and helping them feel comfortable and confident in their care. And so as I was going through like my own health journey, and I was kind of becoming frustrated with like, I didn't want to be on these medications, but I didn't really know what else to do. That was whenever I really started to dive deeper into like maybe some more natural things that I could do myself. Like, could I take this into my own hands um and try to heal this myself? And I feel like through that experience, that's when I kind of started to uncover some things that I was like, I don't know. There seems to be something a little deeper here that I was unsure about. And I was just kind of like, I don't know, this isn't sitting well with me. But again, I was going, I was all in. I was, in the middle of nursing school. I was excited to become a nurse. And so I just kind of had these like two worlds colliding. And so then at the same time, I had gotten like my first adjustment while I was in nursing school. And I feel like it just clicked for me. Like the person that adjusted me was like, yeah, your brain is your nervous system, that controls like everything that happens in your body. And your spinal cord is like this hose that like, brings all of the communication from the brain to the rest of your body. And, if there's one of the vertebrae is off in your spine, then that's like having a kink in the hose. And I was just like, wow, like that makes all the sense in the world. Like my whole, nervous system, my lifeline from my brain to the whole rest of my body, there was a miscommunication there or like an interference there. And so I was like, wow, like this, is just really different than what I was used to. Being in nursing, it was very much like, here's some symptoms and here's how we treat it. And this was just eye-opening for me. And so I'm trying to do all these things to heal myself. I'm have this light bulb moment with chiropractic, and then I graduated and I started practicing, and I just felt like the philosophy just wasn't sitting right with me with like nursing. It just wasn't matching like what I loved and what I really wanted to do. And I felt like just kind of day in, day out, people were coming in, but we were just kind of like giving them something and then sending them home. And that just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I just kind of had this moment of like, wow, I've gone through all of nursing school. I've put all my eggs in this basket. I've, really committed to this, but I felt like there was just something more for me. And so I decided that I was just going to do it. So I moved out of my hometown. I quit my job and I went to chiropractic school. And I just really wanted to pursue this like philosophy of chiropractic that like the body has everything that it needs to heal if we can just like open up that communication line. So I had committed to go back to chiropractic school. And then my very first week, I got connected with a chiropractor that used frequency medicine. And because I was like, I'm getting better, but I still feel like there's something missing. I'm doing all the right things, but there's just this missing piece. And so I started working with her, and she was using like frequency vials and muscle testing. And she had found that I was having a lead issue, like a lead stressor. And I was so shocked because that was not something that I was ever going to look into. That was not something that was on the forefront of my mind. Everything that I was trying to correct was like female hormone related, eating healthy, like all of that. And there was just this like constant inflammation signal going on in my body this whole time. So she had really found that like missing link, and my body was like, hey, I need to correct this piece before anything else can get better, like before the rest of the pieces can fall into place. And that was just what kind of like sealed the deal for me. Was I was like, wow, now we're working with the nervous system. Now, all my communication, between my brain and my body is reconnecting. And now we're addressing this like stressor that my body was trying to tell me was there, but I wasn't figuring out on my own. And after started working with her and getting adjusted, and it was like everything just finally fell into place for me. And I had never felt better in my whole life. It was like all these years of trying and struggling and doing all the right things. There was just this missing part that really came together for me. And that was whenever I was just like, oh my gosh, like chiropractic and muscle testing and frequency medicine and working with the nervous system was just exactly where I wanted to be and like the route that I wanted to go in order to help people.
What a beautiful, amazing story.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just really, um, I love how courageous you were to be able to say, the I, there's something not quite right in the medical system and the way that I'm experiencing it. I know
Yeah.
there's something more. Let me go find it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and was your like, was your upbringing like more holistic, or like where do you believe that you got the insight from, or was it simply your body's wisdom and being intuitive enough to listen? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I was raised in kind of a, traditional American, family that, yeah, we didn't go to the doctor that often, but when we did, whenever you got sick, you just went to the store, you picked up some, cold medicine and you took that, and that was that. There wasn't really a lot of like questioning things. And so I feel like it really took me to kind of like almost hit this like rock bottom point of like, okay, I'm not wanting this for myself, but also like I don't know what else to do besides just start looking into things myself. And so I think that there was kind of this almost like intuitive, voice in me that was like, hey, let's look for something else, or let's, try going down this other path, or looking for answers, like, because we can do it. We can find something out there, or we can, you know, take power back into our own hands. And I think that that was a really big thing for me. And so, yeah, I didn't, grow up with anything like that. I didn't grow up in a healthy, home. We didn't, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. So that was very much um, something different for me. That this was a very different path than what I was raised by.
What a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And so you continue to work with that doctor, and that's where you learned how to bring frequency muscle testing and those modalities and chiropractic into your practice today.
Yeah. I started working with her and I was just blown away because, first there was this lead component, obviously something was chemically off in my body, but then there also was this emotional piece that she brought to the table that she was able to hone in on for me, where like, they say the body keeps the score, and my body had been keeping score for a really long time of things that I didn't realize that were adding extra stress. And then there was just also this other like nervous system piece, just things that she was working with that I was like, wow, I've never seen this before. And I was so intrigued. And so I just continued to work with her because I was like, I'm just feeling so incredible. And then she helped me get connected to seminars. A lot of what I've learned or what I use, in chiropractic, you learn in chiropractic school, you learn the foundations of chiropractic, you learn how to adjust, you learn about all the nerves in the body, but there's some more things that you can do with the nervous system that you have to learn outside of chiropractic school. So she really helped me connect with other doctors, other students, and go to these like additional seminars where I was able to just dive deeper into the muscle testing side of things and learn that piece. And
Lovely.
she has since, kind of mentored me and taught me, and I've shadowed her, and she's just been an incredible like role model into like where I've gotten today.
What a beautiful journey. I love that.
Thank you.
So you talk on your website, you talk
Yeah.
about treating the root cause rather than chasing symptoms. So for someone that's hearing that phrase for the first time, what does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah. So a lot of times, especially from a medical background, if someone is dealing with pain, then, or maybe they're having like numbness, tingling, or maybe they're having some sort of symptom. And kind of in the medical world, we have, a medication that will interact with the pathway of pain, or will interact with the pathway that the body sends like a tingling symptom. But there's so many things that can contribute to pain that can be underlying. And, there can be like an inflammation standpoint, there can be some sort of maybe pathogen that your body is dealing with that's just adding stress to the body. There's a big emotional piece where, our thoughts are not invisible. And so there actually has to be a firing in the nervous system in order for you to have a thought. And so like if an emotion isn't processed, then that can actually gravitate towards a specific organ and just add extra stress to that organ. And gosh, there's so many things, that you can dive into with frequency medicine. And so the goal would be not to, even sometimes in the wellness world, we do this. We, give you a supplement for your pain, but the goal isn't to, change the way that your body's perceiving pain. The goal is to find out like what's causing it in the first place. Like what is going on in the body that's causing this imbalance, that your body's like sending that signal of like, hey, something's going on. I'm having pain. I'm telling you like, hey, I need some help. And so my goal is to help figure out like where that is actually coming from, and then use like frequency medicine, herbs, supplements, things like that to correct that underlier, because again, the body's really adaptable too. And so if you're on something, that's why people have to take a pain medication and then they have to up their dose and keep upping their dose, because the body's trying to get that signal to you that something's wrong. So the goal is to, help you feel better, but then also like create a healthy body so that that isn't coming back. So that, we have like long-term results and long-term, care and health and vitality and things like that. So that was what would be like getting to the root.
Love that. Thank you for that lovely explanation.
Yeah.
You say that emotion is not invisible, it's physical, and that might surprise a lot of people. How do stored emotions actually show up in the body?
Yeah, so this is like one of my favorite things to talk about. So kind of how I had mentioned before that our thoughts are not invisible. So what happens is, in order for you, everything goes back to the nervous system. So like in order for you to have a thought, there has to be a firing. And there's something called a neuro-emotional complex, which we call an NEC. So whenever you feel like anger, you know how sometimes like you'll get kind of hot, or you'll get or like if you're scared, you'll get kind of like shaky, or if you're sad, you'll like, have tears, or just kind of like your body has a physical response. So whenever you have a feeling, something happens where your body has a physical response to that emotion. And so I like to use this analogy, which is something that we were taught at these seminars, where like, say you're driving down the road and you see, a dog that is hit on the side of the road, a black dog hit on the side of the road. Well, and then you like feel sad, you kind of have that like physical response, that sick to your stomach. And then 10 years later, you're driving down the road and you see a black garbage bag on the side of the road. And, it's not the dog that you saw, but you still have that initial, like, that, like, kind of sick to your stomach feeling, because that emotion has a physical response. That NEC has to fire. That NEC, that protein, that complex is still there. And so when we aren't maybe sure how to like process our emotions or process how we feel about something, those can become stuck and they can gravitate towards specific organs. So like feeling of fear goes towards the bladder, feelings of anger, resentment goes towards the liver, feelings of like disgust goes towards the stomach. And it's funny because a lot of them are kind of like similar to phrases that we use, like, oh, I'm sick to my stomach, that like feeling of disgust, despair. Oh, like, grief goes to the lungs. If you're grieving, it's almost like this take my breath away, kind of feeling. And so that's kind of how that works. And something that I always find interesting, just in the space of being a woman, and a lot of times our gallbladder, like a lot of women get their gallbladders removed, and that's a big like resentment, anger organ. And so, if we're not able to process like anger and resentment that we feel through life and it gravitates there, then you just have this extra stress on this organ. And a lot of women end up getting theirs removed. And so it's just really incredible how our bodies kind of like connect those dots for us and like map out those pieces. And if it's just not something that we're thinking about in healthcare or not addressing, then that can be like a root cause of, why someone's having so many issues with a specific organ, or just stress overall, that mental, emotional piece for someone. So that's kind of how that works. That NEC, that neuro-emotional complex, is physical in the body, and it gravitates towards an organ and it adds stress.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Anger, resentment, gallbladder. If the gallbladder is removed, you're still going to feel anger and resentment. So where does it go then?
Right. Yeah, so that's where there's, even though the organ isn't there, there's still the meridian there that goes through that area. That's like with meridians, that's how basically how energy and how like even our blood and how our sources kind of and our resources and our nutrition like flows through our body. So it still gravitates towards that area. There's actually in frequency medicine, we use reflexes. So there's a lot of times a reflex will be in a very similar spot to where the organ is located. So sometimes you'll actually pick up a gallbladder stress on someone that has had their gallbladder removed, because even though the organ isn't there, there's still like that location, that part of the body where that there's that like gravitation of like resources and nutrients and things like that still go there.
Thank you. My
Yeah.
other question that's related to what you just said is when it comes to the organs and the emotion, that
Yes.
sounds very similar, a lot like traditional Chinese medicine. Is that
Yes.
something that you bring into your work, or is it just so happens to overlap with what you do?
So I would say that some of what I do has roots in traditional Chinese medicine. So the emotional work that I do specifically is called neuro-emotional technique. And that has a lot of foundations and roots in traditional Chinese medicine, especially with the meridians, with the emotion organ correlation. So I'm not a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. They would assess differently than I would, but a lot of what I use is rooted in that. And like I use some, herbs and supplements that are rooted in, Chinese medicine, but that's not my initial like assessment. But they had a lot of really good information. They really mapped out the body really well and looked at the person as a whole. And so a lot of natural medicine type stuff, comes from their, intelligence and wisdom and the way that they've connected the dots in the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. So, muscle testing is centered on how you find imbalances. So for
Yes.
skeptics in our audience, how would you explain it, and what can it and can it not tell you?
Yes. So basically, with a muscle testing, I think where a lot of people become skeptical is they're like, well, I'm really strong, so I can, overpower you. And when we're looking at a muscle test and the information that we're getting from it, we're not actually looking at if the muscle is, we'll use the word, strong or weak, but we're not actually looking as if the muscle is buff and strong and, is going to overpower. We're actually looking for a shift in how the nervous system is firing. So I like to say a muscle is kind of like a dumb bag of proteins. It's full of these motor units, but it can only do what the nervous system tells it to do. And so if I'm doing a muscle test on someone, I, am applying pressure to the arm. And what I'm looking for is a shift. So not if, they can, sling my arm to the roof. I'm looking for if there's like an unlocking of the muscle. And someone used this analogy that I, thought was just phenomenal. And I think it's just true science. It's not even just an analogy, but, we look at nervous system tone through muscle. Like we look at, like if someone has a stroke, one of the biggest indicators of if the nervous system isn't working is that the person's going to lose tone in that muscle. They're going to lose that firing capability. The nervous system isn't going to recruit motor units anymore. So that's kind of the same thing that we're doing here is we're just looking for that shift in the nervous system, not an overpowering. So a lot of muscle testers will actually use a very subtle test. It's not very strong and it's not a very strong push on the arm. It's just looking for a shift or a change. And that will give us an indicator to something that maybe the body's not agreeing with, is kind of how I explain that. So say I have a vial or like a frequency vial with the frequency of milk and I hold it up to your body. Well, if your body isn't agreeing with milk right now, or it's causing a shutdown in the nervous system, then there will be a shift in the like unlocking of the muscle, so to say. And that will be an indicator of, hey, this is a stressor to the body. You know, we need to kind of take a break from this or find something to offset it, to correct it.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people might come to you after seeing doctors and continuing to just feel unheard like you did. What do those first conversations sound like, and what shifts for them?
Yeah. So whenever someone has or feels like they're not really getting answers, a lot of times where I go, and I go this direction with every new patient that comes to me because, you know, we're trained to take really good case histories, and case histories can make us think like, oh, you know, I think that this is going on. But at the end of the day, like the body's going to know what's going on. So I can guess all day long, but someone's nervous system is going to be the real revealer of what their body's dealing with and how to correct that. But I always focus on something called like the body's priority. So there's techniques that you can learn. I use contact reflex analysis that helps you hone in on what is like the first layer of the onion that this person needs addressed before anything else can get better. And I feel like that made a big shift for me because, you know, at the time I was like, I'm doing everything right. I don't know, you know, what else to do. But I had this outside layer, this lead stressor that my body was like, hey, I'm trying, but like until this is addressed, I can't get better. So I think that that's where there's kind of this separation from like the medical system, or feeling like, you know, if you're not heard, the body's going to have the answer of like, this is my priority. This is the first layer that I need to deal with. And then from there, we can just go layer by layer and address things as they are. Another thing that's really awesome about frequency medicine is it's super sensitive. So, you know, lab work is diagnostic. A lot of times, though, with lab work, you need, you know, an organ to be misfunctioning or malfunctioning to a certain degree before it will ever show up, because the body's been compensating and is good at compensating. So with frequency medicine, you know, you can have just a little bit of malfunction and the body will be like, hey, this is what's going on. I have a really cool example. I was working with a client that she didn't have any symptoms. She was kind of just coming to me for like overall wellness. And I was picking up bladder stress. And, you know, for her, that was kind of like, I don't know, that doesn't really make sense to me. You know, I'm not having any issues. Well, you know, we were getting bladder stress. We came up with a protocol for her. And then like a day or two later, she had gone out of town on vacation. And her herbs hadn't come in time before she left. She went out of town and she got a UTI. She had developed this UTI. So the frequency medicine was really cool about picking up that stress before the symptoms were really there. Or, you know, if she had, first, she's probably not going to get lab work on her bladder without having any symptoms. So it was like, it was picking up something that was brewing before, like the body was compensating, and then it just couldn't anymore. Picked up on what was brewing. And then, you know, who knows, if she would have had her protocol before she went out of town, she might not have even developed those symptoms or that UTI anyway. So that's kind of where the frequency medicine comes in, is it picks up on things that are developing, but the body might not have shifted yet. And then at the same time, we're working layer by layer, focusing on the priority, so that, like, you know, we have this layered healing that we're really addressing things as the body's ready for as well.
Mm-hmm. What is a common symptom that somebody might just write off as just normal, that you'd actually say that the body is waving a red flag at?
I would say, like, especially in the in the world of like female reproductive health and just female health in general, I feel like there's so many things that we have just accepted as like, this is just common, this is how it is, this is normal, but it's really not. And there are things that, like, for example, you know, like menstrual cramps and period pain, like it's not supposed to be debilitating. And, you know, like slight, you know, cramps or pressure is normal, but like you shouldn't have to not be able to go to work. Or like extreme, you know, mood swings, or like just really big roller coasters of emotions. And Breakouts, that's another big one, is skin stuff that I feel like, our skin is a reflection of our blood. So that's usually an indicator that, something deeper is going on. And I feel like, especially with females, it's going to like kind of snowball where, if you're a teenager and you're like, like I have horrible cramps and horrible mood swings, but that's just normal for me. Well, whenever, it becomes time to like have a family, if that's something that you want, and then, there's this influence of like the shift of hormones, that can affect, the ability to get pregnant. And then down the road, and I have so many women with like perimenopause, menopause symptoms. And it's like a lot of that started, way back when it was like, oh, I just have cramps and it's normal. Where there was this kind of like breakdown of the body being like, hey, help me. And, down the road, into your 50s, 60s, 70s, when you're going through all those shifts, just continues to affect you. And I would say like pain is another big one where, people that have like autoimmune type pain, there's usually some sort of like pathogen or stressor that like your body's dealing with and is trying to like give a signal. And it's a lot of times often just brushed off as, hey, this is just going to be how it is. And it's like, no, you really want to, dive into what's going on and what your body's dealing with. So those would say, I feel like those are two big ones that come to mind that are like, it just is what it is. And it's like, no, like, let's get to the root, because you like don't have to live this way. I think a lot of people just are very quick to accept that, just feeling good just isn't for them, or just an effective aging or all of that. And it's like, no, like you get to feel good. Like you deserve to feel good. You're able to feel good if we're just asking the right questions and really getting to the root of things.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Where does conventional medicine still shine in your view? And how do you decide when someone needs that versus what you offer?
Yeah, I would say that like there is like a time and place, and really good conventional medicine, I think it just gets kind of like overused, where like antibiotics and stuff, like that's still really important, but I feel like it's overused. It's like so quick to just be like, here, here's a prescription, here's a medication, where like, we need them. And like kind of, I would say conventional medicine is really great for emergency type scenarios. I would say in the chronic illness world is where like natural medicine really shines, really helping people get to the root. But I would say in type like emergency type, scenarios, in scenarios where it's like you need something, very quickly, very urgently, that's when like traditional medicine just like really shines and really has a phenomenal like life-saving place. But I think it's always a good idea to like try something more natural first, and then if it's not like life or death type scenario, or you need this really fast kind of scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree wholeheartedly, but thank you for building on that.
Yeah.
So as you're building your practice here in the South Bend, Michiana region,
Yes.
what does community wellness look like for you beyond the treatment room?
Yeah, so community wellness is really important for me. I feel like, especially in the more holistic world, you need your community. Like we're kind of more the minority. I think that like it's growing, but it's still like so important to have your friends and your connections in that world to help you just feel encouraged and not feel alone. And so, connecting with this community is super important to me. I actually, one of the first things that I did whenever I moved here was create a Facebook group for women to connect, to give them a space to meet other women that are interested in holistic health, a space to highlight like local events and even like wellness events that I'm having. I have at least once a month a walk meetup for women to just connect, go to the Mishawaka River walk for an hour in the morning, and just have a space to talk, go outside, get some exercise, get your steps in, and just enjoy each other's company. And then also highlighting other local businesses that have the goods. I think It's so important to like tell each other like, hey, this is where, I got this, or like this person has this really awesome holistic service, kind of like what Conscious Michiana does with their podcast of like highlighting local businesses that you can go to and find your goods. So my Facebook group is called Michiana Women's Wellness Collective. So that's a space that I help to like try to connect women and be a participant, because I'm a person too. And, I love being a doctor and I love helping support people. But I am just as interested in, knowing you as a person and being known as a person. So that's kind of like my space that I've been trying to grow and create to connect women in the area, because it's everything, connection and, love and friendship is just as healing as, so much of what I do. It's an extremely important part of who we are as humans. So.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. So if someone is wanting to connect with you for the first time but might feel some reservations around doing so, what advice would you give?
I think it's one of those things that it looks different, obviously, but I think that right now we're needing something different. Like clearly what's going on right now isn't working. So in order to, what do they say? It's like the definition of like being crazy or something is like doing the same thing over and over and like expecting the same result. Well, I feel like, right now, kind of the way that healthcare is set up, that's kind of what's happening. It's like, we're wanting something different, but we're just doing the same thing over and over again. And so, like, what I do is very different. What I do, it's really unique, but we're kind of needing something unique and different to get to the results. And so that would be my encouragement, is to try it, like do, your research, like read, testimonies and stories from people. I would say a lot of times science is slow, but like stories, are fast, like people's results are fast. And so it's a growing community. You can, look into muscle testing, you can hear people's stories, you can reach out to me. I'm always, more than willing and available to communicate with anyone that has questions or is uncertain. I, make sure to make myself available in that way, because again, it is different and people are unsure, and not a lot of people are talking about frequency medicine in this way. So that is, kind of where I would go, is like, just be open to using something different. It's not scary. It's not weird. It's not, you know, extraordinary or bizarre in that way. I think once you actually start working with a frequency medicine doctor, it's like, oh wait, this actually like makes sense, like this actually feels really you know scientific. It's like, okay, yeah, like the muscle isn't firing, and my body is responding to the frequency of this pathogen or heavy metal or food sensitivities, things like that. So I would say just like give it a try, like do something different and like see what works. And I think that like you'll be surprised, because people tend to do really, really well when someone's asking the right questions.
So my last question for you, I believe, is, do you have a set process that you take individuals through after your initial intake? And if so, what does that look like?
So at the first visit, we come up with we do a lot of work that first visit. So we do, a full case history. I check in on some reflexes. That's kind of like my version of lab work. And then we kind of already start getting to work that first visit. So we look at, your body's priority. We check in with the body. Do you need something structurally here, something nervous system based? Do you need something emotional? If it's something emotional, we kind of dive right into that on the first visit. If it's something nutritional, then we come up with a protocol for exactly what your body is looking for. And so that first visit, you actually are, we begin the process, and then you're sent home with like a protocol that's very specific down to, the capsule, how many times a day, how many days a week kind of thing. And then from there, it really just depends on the person, but not in a I'm going to guess how long until I see you again way. We actually test for it. So, it's how long can your body handle this protocol? When do you need to be seen again? Because your body knows. Your body's like, okay, this is what I'm on. This is what I'm dealing with. So for all of my my patients and my clients, I test out like, when do you need to see me next? And sometimes the body at first might be like, hey, I can only handle one capsule of this herb, because like that, if I take any more than that, it's gonna override me. So you might be on one capsule a day for 2 weeks, and then the body's like, hey, in 2 weeks I can see you again, we can up the dose. But then for some people, they're like, hey, this is my protocol and I can handle this for 6 weeks. And so then you don't have to check in, for another 6 weeks. So it's very, even down to like scheduling and down to how frequently you're seen is really up to your nervous system and what your body can handle and what it's ready for. And we kind of go from there. And then I always offer just emotional clearing appointments, like in between. If someone really needs some extra support in that area, then I will do appointments that are just emotional and not address all the things. And that can be kind of a nice thing for, they're on this herbal protocol for 6 weeks, but they're feeling like they might need a little support in between. And then they can, meet with me more frequently in that space.
So what I hear you say is that you don't always do adjustments. If it's something that's structural that comes through the muscle testing, at that point you'll do adjustments. Otherwise, you're using the frequency tools and the muscle testing to determine what's needed and following those protocols.
Yes, I would say, especially when it comes to adjusting, this isn't something that's popular for a chiropractor to say, but sometimes the body doesn't need an adjustment. Sometimes an adjustment is too much. Sometimes an adjustment is, too much force for the body, that the body's like, I can't even handle this right now. So during all of my appointments, it's like kind of integrated into that. It's like, okay, we're dealing with the stomach. Do you need an adjustment? Do you need an herb? Do you need emotional clearing? Like, an adjustment is not something that I do at every single appointment. It's integrated into the appointment if the body's asking for it and is ready for it and can handle it. And if it's going to be the solution to that root cause, issue that we're getting at.
Lovely. So, Dr. Corrina, is there anything that you've not talked about that you would like to include?
I would say the only thing that I haven't talked about, but I think some people ask about or might come up, is like, kind of like, what is frequency medicine? Like, you're throwing out, this word frequency, like, what does that even mean? And so I use vial testing, and for some people, they might care about this. For some people, they might not. So if you don't want to include it, that's totally fine. But so everything has a frequency, kind of like in our basic chemistry classes. You learn about how an electron, moves around a nucleus and it creates an energy. And the difference between an ice cube and water vapor is that one is moving faster than the other. And so, like, everything has a frequency, everything has its own like fingerprint or thumbprint. And so what we've been able to do is isolate that frequency that matches a specific thing. So I think like Lyme, is a really big thing right now. And like the bacteria that causes Lyme, we can isolate the frequency of that bacteria, and we can put it in a little glass capsule. And that's what you like hold up to the body. And that's how you can see if the body's dealing with something without doing like the lab work part of it. That's how you can see if the nervous system is having a response. And that's kind of how we can get into the nitty gritty of, like, why is my doctor not finding this? Or why is my doctor not testing this? And it's like, we have all these different vials that we can check with the body to see like what is causing a weakness, where is the nervous system shutting down. And it's all based on that unique, fingerprint that each, organism, each thing, in the world that we've been able to isolate and use for testing. So I think that that's really cool and really like unique and specific to like what I do and to how we can find some things that maybe aren't showing up for people in their regular doctor visits.
Lovely. I am so excited that you are here, that you
Thank
chose
you.
our community to come to out of all of the places that you could have been. I
Thank you.
am just, I love hearing about what you're doing and how, I mean, it's cutting edge and
Yeah.
different and also very effective. And I'm just super excited to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
I will put in on the show notes, I will have your information, how do people can reach you, and your website and all of the things so people can easily find you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I just absolutely love this community. I have loved every minute of being here. I love all the different, types of people here. I love, just Michigan and Indiana all together and all the events that I've been to. I'm just so thankful for the community for being so welcoming and warm. And I'm just so happy to be rooted here and to be connected with Conscious Michiana and everything that you guys are doing. It has just been awesome seeing how you guys have really brought together like the holistic community in this area. Because I came from South Carolina and like no one's doing that there. So it is just like so refreshing and awesome to see. And so thank you too for all that you guys are doing. I just like could not be more thankful to be a part of this community.
Likewise, I think that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Corrina, and until next time.
Thank you so much, Jamila.
That is a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us in the Hive. We hope you're walking away inspired, energized, and ready to expand, evolve, and grow on your own journey. If this conversation moved you, sparked a new idea, or made you feel more connected, share it with a friend and help us keep the buzz alive. Conscious Michiana is a nonprofit powered by community, and your support helps us keep creating meaningful content, hosting events, and connecting people to the resources they need to thrive. Visit consciousmichiana.org/donate to contribute, because every drop of honey helps. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on social media. Until next time, be well, Michiana. The Michiana Hivecast, buzzing with wellness, connection, and conscious living in Michiana. Expand, evolve, grow.